Welcome to The Business of Family, the podcast where we explore the stories, challenges, and opportunities of family businesses. I'm your host, Tammy Buss, and I'm a family business survivor and also a family business advisor. In this show, we will be talking with family business leaders and experts to bring you insights and inspiration so you too can survive your family business journey. Whether you're a founder, a successor, a professional, or just curious about family businesses, this podcast is for you. So my guest today is Tom Estabrook. So Estabrooks is a full-service, family-owned garden center that began in Maine nearly 75 years ago, but it started as a small poultry farm, and it was started by Myron and Sadie Estabrook. Over time, the family business evolved from raising chickens to growing produce and flowers, eventually expanding to include trees, shrubs, perennials. And today, it offers a wide selection of high-quality plants, gardening supplies, bulk delivering, and expert advice from a dedicated team and multiple locations, by the way. And also what's really exciting about this is that there's multiple generations of the Estabrook family still remain active in the business and the local community and organizations. And today, our guest is Tom Estabrook. He's a third/fourth, and we're going to discuss that a little bit. And is the president of Estabrooks and has dedicated his career to the green industry. So Tom combines technical expertise with decades of hands-on experience in nursery management and garden retail. He also served as the president of the Maine Landscape and Nursery Association, where he worked to advance the horticulture profession across the state. At Estabrooks, Tom continues to lead with passion for plants, customer service, and strengthening the gardening community throughout the state of Maine. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and we met not long ago, which is really amazing. You have a great story, and I just wanted to make sure you came on the podcast to share your story and the fact that you are. We're going to get into this third, fourth generation. We'll talk about why there's a difference, and would that be fourth, fifth generation in the business? So maybe let's start at the beginning and Tell me a little bit about how it started, how your family business started as a poultry farm.
Yeah, so my great-great-grandparents, Myron and Sadie, they had a small farmhouse here about a mile away from our existing garden center. Started raising some small chicks for a larger, producer that basically would grow the chicks on for eggs. And that blossomed with my grandparents getting involved, with him, and they moved to the property that we're on here at the Yarmouth Garden Center now. So all the big barns you see here at the garden center were actually, a hatchery. So our tag, bins are old, incubators, so there's a lot of that history still here, but basically, as that kind of phased out in Maine, they had to pivot. So.
Mm-hmm. And that's how they got into more of the, the greens.
Yeah.
And into the gardening side.
Yeah, they basically went into vegetable farming. So they pivoted from chickens, went to vegetables. As they got larger in acreage, they were shipping to Boston. They were working with the Hanfords of the world and whatnot, doing a pretty large scale commercial, vegetable farm. But what happened was their producer of their starts actually went out of business. So there was a small little florist garden center here in Yarmouth. They were growing all the tomatoes and peppers and all the plants that my grandfather needed to line out in the fields. And they went out of business. So he was forced to start growing his own, brought a few to farmer's market, and quickly found out that plants sell pretty quick. And that was the seed that kind of started the whole movement towards plants.
Well, and I think that's important for other family businesses to realize that, a family business can maintain its family heritage, but it doesn't have to stay down the same lane in which it was started. Right. And I think that's what's key with family businesses is to understand that because your grandparents started this or your parents started this doesn't mean that you have to stay in exactly that lane, that you can change and, as you say, pivot when it's necessary or you see an opportunity. So I think that's really, really keen. So that's where sort of the fourth generation started was if you take into account the poultry, but then three, if you just look at the garden center and the horticultural part of of the family business?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think I look at it as I'm the third generation in the garden center business, but as a family legacy, I think you can safely say it's four, maybe five, but I kind of tend to, stick with three. So
Well, I think you should be proud that it's 4 or 5 because,
absolutely.
as you know, the percentage of and the chance of a third and plus generation family business continuing is around 3%. So it's amazing to actually last that long. So tell me a little bit about how you ended up lasting that long.
Well, I think, like you said, continuing to evolve and continuing to change. Our motto here at Estabrooks is if we're not growing, we're dying. So, we're constantly looking to implement cutting edge technologies, to continue to evolve into the business that fits the market needs, not necessarily what we think we want to do. So, over the years, we've really evolved with the population growth, with the need for horticultural products, diversified, so that we really are kind of set up for if one particular supply chain is down, we're able to kind of shift gears, move into another lane, increase that business to kind of make sure that we have protected the business over the years.
Well, that's amazing. So that's really looking at from the business structure and how to protect yourself. But, family business is a little more than just the business itself, right? It becomes the generations and how do you transition. So generally, family businesses struggle with that leadership transition, right? To go from one generation to the other. So how did you manage to make this happen so successfully?
Well, I think every family business struggles with that. I don't think we're unique in any way, and I think we have a lot of different personalities in our family, which makes us a strong piece, but it also can be a weakness at times. So understanding that you need good outside advisement. You need to really work with a team of people to help you see through the forest through the trees, so to speak. Because you're not, as a family, going to have all the knowledge or all of the know-how to navigate this. So we've been fortunate enough that we have governed the business as a group for a long time. And as decisions get made, basically, whether you like it or you don't, once a decision is made, you all have to get behind it. And, I think that's a real testament to our family. It really kind of drives home why we've been as successful as we can be, is because whether it's a right decision or a wrong decision, you're going to see it through and do it appropriately and not kind of infight.
And so how does that decision happen? Because there's, if you look at the three circle model, there's the family, the ownership, and the business. And when decisions are made, is that made at an ownership level or is that made at a business level so that the owners come on board or the business comes on board? So where are those major decisions made that someone has to hop on and go with the flow?
Yeah, so I mean, we have operations meetings and we have ownership meetings, and we have some silent shareholders. We have family members who are actively in the business. The family members who are actively in the business are driving the business. They're the ones that basically are working day to day, and they're coming back to the rest of the group to kind of make the bigger decisions. I.e., we just opened a new 55,000 square foot production facility. Well, that was a big investment. So, those are our top level, full family talking, discussing, making sure that we're all comfortable, running the numbers, working with your lawyers and your accountants and your whole team to come up with the best decision. But day to day is primarily working, with who's in the business. We're working within a budget like most businesses and have the autonomy to kind of work things through. But communication is just key. If you're meeting and you're talking about what's going on in the business, not only what's going well, but what's going poorly, I think you really kind of get in a good place where the communication just kind of, carries through so you don't have problems, and miscommunication can be your biggest enemy.
Oh, absolutely. As a family business advisor, we talk about that all the time. Most of the issues revolve around lack of communication or maybe not as open communication or assumptions. But let's look at how many family members or what generations are actually involved today
Yeah.
working in the business.
So we're in another of evolution, I would call it. So right now you've got me, my brother, and my cousin. We are actively working in the business. My aunt, Tammy, is she's cut down to say 4 days a week. We've got my aunt Jolene, who is retired for a couple years now. And then you've got my cousin, a couple other cousins that are silent minority shareholders. So they sit on the board, but don't really have a lot to say in the running of the business. So we're continuing our evolution of how people are retiring out of the company, what that looks like, continuing to make sure we're keeping up with our evolution plans. So one of the things, being a newer president with, maybe like 2 or 3 years underneath my belt, is that I'm trying to listen more than necessarily talk at times, is listen to what the rest of the family needs. So we're actually setting up an advisory board right now. We're setting up a board of directors. We've never really had that before. We sit on one, but we don't really act that way. So, part of actually the strategy for one of our owners' meetings tomorrow is, what is the next 25 years look like for you in the company, and bringing that information back on personally how you see it. I will then compile it from all the family members, come up with common themes, and then basically, we'll come up with a strategic plan, and then all the outlying other ideas that are given will also get talked about, and then hopefully we'll have a, say, 10 to 15 year plan that we keep revising. So we
This
certainly
is exactly what I say to my clients, right? So I'm so impressed that you've done all this work, and it's amazing. So let me just go back a little bit, because you have two generations now working in the business. Is there kids involved now of you or your cousin or brother? So do we have three generations actively working in the business?
So we have some kids. They're doing some seasonal jobs with us now. One thing that we've always strived for and is that no one has pressure to come into this business. No one needs to come into this business. We have qualified people to continue, and we're building that team as if we would all be sitting on a board and they would be reporting to us.
Love that.
So we're really right now, our middle management team and our young management team, we're putting them in a position to be able to run this company. And my job, as this is my 41st spring and I'm 52.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
I've done every position in this company you can just about imagine, but my goal in the next 10 years is to grow myself out of a job. That's
That's
my number
amazing.
one thing.
And has that been a structure that you've put in place, your generation, or was it put in place from a previous generation? Because generally, the deeper you get into the generations, the more structure there is. There's more governance. You've had the horse sometimes was out of the barn and you can't fix it, but you'll fix it for the next go round. How did you end up being so well organized?
I think everything's a best laid plan, right? And, when my Aunt Jolene decided she wanted to retire, it was, I can't. And, I felt what a tough position to be in, right? Like, I can't because we can't afford to replace me. I can't because of this. I can't because of that, whatever the excuses are. So, when we kind of went through that transition with one major stockholder kind of retiring and starting to work with, communication with somebody who's not here necessarily day to day, so on and so forth. When it came to a few years later, my other aunt starting that process, I went to her and kind of said, okay, I don't really want this process to go the same way. And I don't think you do either, because you had to deal with this also. There's stumbles, there's, a sense of knowledge. So over the last few years, we've really tried to basically start to take things off of her plate, moving them onto other key staff members, and then also coming up with a plan to reduce over time. And I think as you start to reduce over time, there's a comfort level with the employee that they want to retire more, they want to move quicker, and that they also know that other people are able to take the load and actually be in a good place. So will it be done perfectly? No, everybody has a different way of doing things. You might have to put some new policies and procedures in place. There's a whole host of things that start to come up, but I think until you're in that transition, you don't fully grasp the whole piece of it, right? So, for me, that's the big thing is like, okay, we went through it once. we didn't do as well as I would have hoped. Let's not make the same mistake the next time. And then you've got myself, my brother, and my cousin who are, probably 10 years, out. And we're hoping we're in that role where we can kind of not have to be here 60 hours a week. Maybe we're here 30 hours a week. How do we start that plan now? How do we get the right people in place? How do we, kind of make the systems so even if we lose a piece of that puzzle, we can plug a new person in? So that's what we're really, really doing and working on very hard right now.
So how does this work then for the next generation? Because right now, how's the ownership structure right now? Are you that are working in the business have ownership, or is it still held by your aunts?
Nope, there's 4 major shareholders. There's me and my brother and my 2 aunts. The others all have small, percentages. They will get pass-throughs through, estate planning and whatnot. And those other 3 family members who have minor shareholders will then become larger stakeholders. So right now, 2 of the 3 are not working in the business. So part of that board structure and that board work and that what I like to call family summit time is that we really need to kind of start educating them for as that pass through happens, them understanding how the business runs, what the financial situation is, how we run the business, what the seasonal cash flow scenario is so they don't freak out. All of those types of things are knowledge that we need to start in now, not wait until all of a sudden they're a major shareholder and they're all of a sudden going, I don't like the way this is. I want to be out. I want to be, and then also what are the provisions if they want to make sure that the business stays strong? Is there a specific payout period? How does the business get evaluated? So on and so forth. All of those things are written in our stockholder agreements, and
I love that.
all of that stuff is really when we passed from my grandparents' generation to the next 2 generations. We actually, the next 2 generations, sat down and worked through the stockholder agreement and came up with some new agreements and ways that we thought the business would be safeguarded. And I feel pretty confident. But those documents have to be continually worked on and looked on. They can't just be set.
It's adaptation, right? You have to be able to adapt based on what's going on, like going from chicken, poultry, eggs over into, the garden center and everything you do now. And again, that's an evolution, and it's things that I think most family businesses have to realize that it doesn't have to stay the same. You can evolve and change as the need, and you also have to communicate that with the other generations. So when do you start to involve the next gen? So, you're talking about that education piece. Are you starting to educate them on the business itself before they're actually even involved or have ownership? Like, what does that education sort of look like from your perspective?
So, we're really fortunate. We've got folks who are very technical. We've got my other cousin, Michael. He's in the insurance industry. So, he's giving back to the business, even though he's not a huge stakeholder at this time. He's actually sitting in on all our insurance, meetings, and actually from afar, from across the country, he's actually sitting in on those and helping us negotiate those things and understanding what kind of liabilities we might have, and makes him more confident and comfortable that we're covered in those scenarios. And then, like I said, what I like to call Estabrooks Summit will be a new thing. All the family's going to be in town, so we're going to actually have all the generations together. We'll have a business day where we'll actually go off site. We will probably do some, business related meetings and whatnot in the morning, and then do something fun in the afternoon. So, trying to kind of bridge that gap of, hey, yeah, there's business here, there's family here, but there needs to be conversation in the middle that basically is business friendly, but we've got to get the job done. We've got to make each other understand that, business is hard. It's not easy. There's got to be times where we don't agree, but that conflict resolution is really important.
I love that, because this is what I try to say to families. And I particularly work with first, second, third. That's sort of primarily. I mean, there's always outliers there, but it's the generations that don't really have that structure. and are kind of scared and not sure what to do and how to approach it. And I love the fact that you just gather everybody together, because as a family business advisor, I'm telling them all the time, you need to get the family together. You need to talk about things. It doesn't mean you're necessarily going to transfer the business today. Could be 10 years, could be on death, but they have to have an understanding of the business, the opportunities. Is it going to be maintained as a family business? Who can be an owner? Who can be involved? All these before the horse is out of the barn and there's a problem, right? Because that's what generally I get called in generally when there's an issue.
Right.
And you have to sort of solve it. What I'm trying to do is to avoid those issues and say, have these discussions now while everybody's happy. And it's that education piece, because I think the decisions sometimes are made, or the frustration is from lack of knowledge and communication.
Without a doubt. And we've had our struggles in that room too. I mean,
it wasn't perfect?
No, nothing in this world is perfect, but ultimately I think listening's more important than talking. And I mean, I'm a talker, as you can tell. I like to talk things, sometimes I need to listen more. And I think as you age and as you get a little bit more knowledge, you tend to kind of stop and listen to everyone else, hear the full thought process, and try to basically, absorb as much as you can before you actually react. And that's kind of what I've tried to do as a president, is to really kind of let people voice their concerns, voice their and hear their understanding, make sure they have all the information so that they can be informed, and then also let them be part of the process going forward. So, if you kind of have everybody involved as much as possible, it tends to kind of smooth everything out. And also, my door's always open. My phone's always available. You don't like the way things, pick up the phone and tell me. I don't know what I don't know.
Right.
And if you're feeling uneasy about something, you need to really communicate that. That way, at least it's all above board.
So you mentioned that you're going to be structuring a advisory board. Because right now it's kind of a mishmash of, would that be management and ownership sort of mixed in on the business side, and then trying to divide it between ownership and business. So what's giving you sort of the reason for that? And then what are you going to sort of fill it with? Like, what are the bodies? Because it's advisory as opposed to fiduciary, right? So more of an advisory board.
I think the big thing is understanding that you might not need to be the smartest person in the room, but you got to be smart enough to bring in people that might be smarter than you. We're poised to, in the next 10 years, probably double or more our business. We've got some great opportunities, a very aggressive plan, but with that comes unrest and uneasy amongst family members in multiple generations, who may or may not have the technical ability to scale the way we're looking at scaling. And when you run into those things, you certainly, if you don't have good advisement, if you don't have people who have been through certain things beforehand, if you don't have good mentors, you can kind of get bogged down in indecision. And indecision in a business can be a good thing. It can be a really bad thing. But also being mindful that you have to do the planning and all of the other things to make sure that everything scales appropriately. So part of that thing is understanding that we're at maybe the top of the mountain trying to crest, right? And we really need more help. We need more help to get over that peak and then be able to kind of run, in a nice valley for a long time, and knowing that we just don't have the knowledge to do that. We've grown the company very well. We've done very good at what we've done, but now we're going to a different level. We may be, shipping plants all over the country. We may be supplying to the greater Northeast, along with our retail business to business, all the things that we've already done, but now we're talking a much grander scale, and could also be, more exposure for, detriment too.
Absolutely.
So, folks who can see the signs better than we can see them, you always want to safeguard yourself. That's the way I look at it.
And is it an application sort of to come on your board? Is that or is it people that within industry, not necessarily your industry, but industry experience or business experience. When you're looking to fill that board position, do you have like a set number or
So
a
we're
set
really,
industry?
but really just getting into that process right now.
Mhm.
I mean, my gut is like five,
Yeah.
would be a great number. From a wider range of different professionals.
Mhm.
Everything from marketing to business to, someone who's more just a gardener,
Mhm.
to look at all different supply
I love
situations.
that.
Um, and really listening to the customer at the same time,
Mhm.
so alongside of that, probably doing more focused market analysis. We've become a company that's run a lot by numbers.
Mhm.
It's run a lot by statistics. Over the years, we've gotten better and better at numbers and looking at data and making real world decisions based on that data, which I think is not the norm for our particular industry.
Mhm.
Um, again, we're just getting set up. For instance, I've just partaken a course at the Rue Institute here in Portland on entrepreneurship and whatnot with myself, with a couple other people. One of the things that came out of it was through mentors through that program, was setting up this board,
Mhm.
setting up different supply chain models. It's an exciting time,
Yeah. Yeah.
but a lot
Well, I'm
going.
telling you, it's no surprise you are as successful as you are because you've ticked off all the boxes. Honestly, you've done an amazing job. Oh, and congratulations on your win for one of the Family of the Year in Portland. Congratulate, or in Maine, I should say, in the state
Yeah.
of Maine. Congratulations. Um, Believe it or not, we're out of time. I could sit here and have lots more conversations, but I like to end every podcast with our guests giving 3 pieces of advice that
Mhm.
you would give to other family businesses. What would those top 3 pieces of advice you'd give?
Start early, start often,
Yeah.
and lastly, continue the plan. We're an evolution as a business and continue to adjust and change. Just because something's not working, don't have your head in the sand. Is take your head out of that sand, look around. We had a florist division, wasn't working. We shut it down a little over a year ago, and it's okay sometimes to fail.
Mm.
You get the most knowledge by failing periodically. It's just how
Mhm.
do you limit that risk of failure?
Right.
And if it's not a good business decision, pivot and make a different move. And then everything starts to fall into place and put your efforts where your best return on investment is going to be.
I love that. Because sometimes you get caught up in something and you just don't let it go and you just keep throwing more and more time and money and energy at it. I love that. You have done absolutely everything right. Not only do you know what you should do, but you've actually done it. And 75 years plus is proof in the pudding that you guys know what you're doing. So congratulations again for the success you've had. And I wish you all the more continued success, and particularly with the next generation. They're very fortunate to have you guys as leaders. So thank you very much for coming on. What is your website if someone wants to take a look and check out this fabulous family business?
It's estabrooksonline.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Tom.
All right. Appreciate it. It was a blast.
If you like this episode, subscribe to the Business of Family podcast on your favorite listening platform. You can also find BlueRoots on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. On the next show, I'll be back with another amazing guest who will inspire you with their family business insights. Until then, take care and keep it in the family. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, tax, investment, or insurance advice. Before acting on any advice, please contact your personal or company advisors.